Albert Speer was born in 1905 into a family of architects. He initially hesitated to follow in their footsteps. He preferred mathematics. However, Speer eventually enrolled in architecture. He studied at technical schools. He later attended the prestigious Berlin Academy. Germany in these years was in turmoil. The economy struggled. Political extremism was on the rise. Speer, like many young men, was drawn to the Nazi Party. He attended a rally in 1930. He was captivated by Hitler's charisma and message of national renewal. Speer joined the party in 1931. He saw in it a chance to contribute his skills to a new Germany. He believed in its promises of strength and prosperity. Speer's architectural training fit well with the Nazis' grandiose vision. They sought to reshape Germany in their image. They needed monumental buildings. These buildings would project their power and ideology. Speer's early work caught the attention of prominent Nazis. He was commissioned to renovate the Nazi Party's headquarters in Berlin in 1933. This was a pivotal moment. It brought him into direct contact with Hitler. Hitler was impressed by Speer's work ethic and understanding of his vision. He saw in Speer a talented and ambitious young man. Speer, in turn, was mesmerized by Hitler. He saw in him a leader who could restore Germany to greatness. This meeting marked the beginning of a close relationship. It shaped Speer's life and left an indelible mark on history. Speer's rise within the Nazi ranks was meteoric. His close relationship with Hitler granted him access and influence. He became Hitler's personal architect in 1934. This position gave him immense power. He oversaw numerous architectural projects. These projects were designed to showcase the Nazi regime's power. Speer's architectural style reflected the Nazi ideology. His buildings were massive and imposing. They used classical elements. They were meant to evoke a sense of awe and intimidation. One of Speer's most ambitious projects was the redesign of Berlin. Hitler envisioned a new capital for the Reich. It would be called Germania. It would be the center of a Nazi-dominated Europe. Speer's plans for Germania were grandiose. They included a massive domed hall. It would dwarf St. Peter's Basilica in Rome. A wide avenue lined with monumental buildings would cut through the city. The project was intended to be a testament to the power and ambition of the Nazi regime. Speer's relationship with Hitler went beyond architecture. He became a trusted confidant. He was a regular guest at Hitler's mountain retreat in Berchtesgaden. Speer witnessed firsthand the inner workings of the Nazi regime. He observed the dynamics between Hitler and his inner circle. Despite his proximity to power, Speer always maintained that he was unaware of the regime's crimes. He claimed to be focused solely on his architectural work. This claim has been disputed by historians. Many argue that Speer's position made it impossible for him to be ignorant of the Nazis' atrocities. Speer's architectural work played a crucial role in shaping the Nazi image. His buildings were not mere structures, they were powerful propaganda tools. They were designed to instill awe and obedience in the German people. One of his most significant projects was the design of the Nazi Party rally grounds in Nuremberg. These grounds were the stage for massive rallies. They were designed to showcase the unity and strength of the Nazi Party. The centerpiece was the Zeppelin Field. It was a vast parade ground. It could accommodate hundreds of thousands of people. Speer used light, sound, and architectural elements to create a spectacle of power. Speer's work in Nuremberg went beyond the rally grounds. He also designed the new Reich Chancellery. It was completed in 1939. It was intended to be the seat of Nazi power. The building was characterized by its long, imposing facade. It had a grand hall that was designed to intimidate visitors. Hitler's office was located at the end of a long corridor. This design was meant to emphasize his power and authority. While the Nuremberg rally grounds and the new Reich Chancellery were completed, Speer's most ambitious project, Germania, never came to fruition. The outbreak of World War II in 1939 put an end to Speer's architectural dreams. The resources and manpower needed for Germania were diverted to the war effort. Despite this, Speer's architectural legacy remained. His buildings stood as a testament to the power and ambition of the Nazi regime. They served as a reminder of the dangers of unchecked ideology. Section 4. The Armament Minister, Speer's wartime role. With the outbreak of World War II, Speer's role within the Nazi regime changed dramatically. He was appointed Minister of Armaments and War Production in 1942. This was a crucial position. Germany was fully engaged in a global conflict. Speer's task was to increase production. He needed to keep the German war machine supplied. He proved to be a highly effective administrator. He streamlined production processes. He increased the use of slave labor. This, despite his later claims of ignorance about the Holocaust. Speer's efforts significantly prolonged the war. They delayed the inevitable defeat of Nazi Germany. Speer's wartime activities were not without controversy. He relied heavily on forced labor. Millions of people were deported from Nazi-occupied territories. They were forced to work in German factories. Conditions were brutal. Many died from starvation, disease, and overwork. Speer claimed that he was unaware of the full extent of the horrors. He argued that he was focused on increasing production. However, his claims have been disputed by historians. Evidence suggests that he was aware of the use of slave labor. He chose to ignore its consequences. Despite his efforts, the tide of the war turned against Germany. Allied bombing raids devastated German cities and industrial centers. Speer's factories were increasingly targeted. Production plummeted. By 1945, it was clear that Germany was facing defeat. Speer, in a final act of defiance against Hitler, refused to implement the Nuremberg Decree. This decree would have destroyed Germany's remaining infrastructure. He argued that it would leave the German people with nothing. This act of defiance, however, did little to mitigate his role in sustaining the Nazi war machine. He remained a controversial figure. He was a symbol of the complex relationship between technocratic efficiency and moral responsibility. Section 5, Nuremberg and after facing judgment. Following Germany's defeat in 1945, Speer, along with other surviving Nazi leaders, was arrested and put on trial at Nuremberg. The Nuremberg Trials were a landmark event. They were the first international trials for crimes against humanity. Speer was charged with war crimes and crimes against humanity. The charges stemmed from his role in the use of slave labor. They also focused on his position within the Nazi leadership. During the trial, Speer presented himself as a technocrat. He claimed that he was apolitical. He insisted that he was unaware of the regime's crimes. He expressed remorse for his role in the war. He accepted responsibility for the use of slave labor. However, he maintained that he had no knowledge of the Holocaust. Speer's defense strategy was successful, at least in part. He was found guilty of war crimes and crimes against humanity. However, he avoided the death penalty. He was sentenced to 20 years in Spandau prison in Berlin. His relatively lenient sentence, compared to other Nazi leaders, sparked controversy. Some saw it as evidence of his remorse and cooperation. Others viewed it as a miscarriage of justice. They argued that his crimes were no less heinous than those of his co-defendants. Speer's trial and sentence had a significant impact on his public image. He became known as the Good Nazi. He was portrayed as a talented architect. He was seen as a remorseful individual who had been led astray by Hitler. This image was carefully cultivated by Speer himself. He used his time in prison to write his memoirs. He presented himself as a flawed but ultimately decent man. He claimed to have been blinded by ambition and loyalty. This carefully constructed persona shaped public perception of Speer for decades. It also fueled debate about his true level of culpability. Section 6. The Good Nazi, Speer's complex legacy. Albert Speer's legacy is complex and contested. He was a talented architect. He designed monumental buildings. These buildings reflected the grandeur and terror of the Nazi regime. He was also a ruthless technocrat. He used his organizational skills to fuel the Nazi war machine. He relied heavily on slave labor. This caused immense suffering and death. Speer's claims of ignorance about the Holocaust have been widely disputed. His role in the Nazi regime raises uncomfortable questions about the relationship between ambition, morality, and individual responsibility. Speer's carefully crafted image as the Good Nazi has been challenged in recent years. Historians have uncovered more evidence of his knowledge of Nazi crimes. They have highlighted his active participation in the regime's atrocities. Speer's own writings, once seen as evidence of his remorse, are now viewed with more skepticism. They are seen as attempts to downplay his culpability and rehabilitate his image. The debate over Speer's legacy is likely to continue. He remains a symbol of the moral complexities of the Nazi era. He is a reminder that even the most talented individuals can be seduced by power and ideology. Speer's story serves as a cautionary tale. It highlights the dangers of unchecked ambition. It underscores the importance of moral courage in the face of evil. It reminds us that we all have a responsibility to speak out against injustice. We must learn from the past to prevent the horrors of the Nazi era from ever happening again. The legacy of Albert Speer, the architect of the Third Reich, is a reminder that even the most brilliant minds can be corrupted by power. It is a stark warning that we must remain vigilant in defending human dignity and freedom. We must never forget the lessons of the past.